When it comes to climate change, most news outlets report exclusively about CO2 emissions and how developed countries are the true perpetrators of pending disasters worldwide. In the US, California has recently taken the spotlight with some dire and damning predictions for the future. NASA's research points to the finding that continued greenhouse gas emissions will lead to stronger droughts throughout the century, hurting agricultural activity, the economy as a whole, and potentially cause health hazards. With the Californian government imposing water restrictions for the first time in history, it's easy to forget that climate change is a global issue. For this reason, this video seeks to shed light on a unique actor in the climate change issue: Brazil. Brazil is the 8th largest economy in the world, as ranked by the CIA Factbook, and the 7th largest emitter of greenhouse gases, according to the World Research Institute. Though it would seem very intuitive to think that Brazil's emissions are very high, they are actually very low when compared to developed and developing nations alike. Brazil has only contributed to 5% of the total cumulative greenhouse gas emissions from 1990 to 2011, and currently emits about 1 gigaton of CO2e, which is over 6 times less than the United States. With the exception of the highly industrialized areas of Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, Brazil is actually a world example in the fight against climate change. It is the leading producer and consumer of ethanol, which can be added to gasoline to reduce the potency of greenhouse gases. This has led to Brazil avoiding the release of 5.86 megatons of carbon in the 80s and 9.5 megatons in 1990 alone. Brazil's energy is also mostly hydroelectric or water-powered, which is much more environmentally friendly than the burning of fossil fuels, but not as much as aeolic or wind-powered energy supplies. Emissions aside, Brazil also plays a much more crucial role in the climate change problem. The recently re-elected President Dilma Rousseff of the Workers' Party argued that, since most of global warming was due to the release of CO2, the environmentalist concerns of the Green Party were too extreme to the point they could seriously harm businesses and consequently the Brazilian people. Unfortunately, as opposition candidate Marina Silva points out, Brazil's biggest problem stems from the massive deforestation of the Amazon forest, most of which is located in Brazilian territory. This is observable by the fact that Brazil's net emission of CO2e actually increases when accounting for land use changes in forestry. As the government-backed exploitation of the Amazon grows each year, more and more of its territory is decimated. The result is the destruction and eventual decomposition of plant life, which releases more CO2 into the atmosphere, but most importantly, causes great perturbations in the carbon cycle. The final result is more CO2 in the atmosphere and less plant life to absorb it through the process of photosynthesis. How climate change will affect Brazil remains a difficult prediction to accurately assess. The general consensus seems to indicate that the increased temperatures, especially in the Amazon area, will cause increased evaporation of the surrounding bodies of water and consequently alter precipitation patterns across all the north of Brazil. The north of Brazil is already known for being especially dry, with the exception of the Amazon, and these precipitation changes could both extend and expand droughts to degrees never seen before. This is especially problematic due to the fact that the north, and particularly the northeast of Brazil, are the most vulnerable regions to the effects of climate change due to a long history of poverty and lagging development behind the richer southern states. And while Brazil's efforts to mitigate CO2 emissions are very commendable, the Amazon's destruction will undoubtedly have massive ramifications. Adding to this problem is the political opportunism fueling the delays and corruption behind unfinished socioeconomic projects that could both help equip the north of Brazil to deal with the effects of climate change, as well as helping the world mitigate the effects of CO2 with a strong and healthy Amazon rainforest. Whether Brazil will be able to effectively tackle the issue remains to be seen.